This is Game On, discussing the biggest games and all the latest sports news with Johnny Montalbano and Hank Indictor on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Welcome to episode 33 of Game On. Yes, this is awkward because I'm not going to do Johnny's intro. That's Hank Indictor. I'm Nick Morgasen. Wow, I've been on this show 2 straight weeks, haven't I? Yeah, I have.
Yeah, usually it's last time it was like you were in my shoes. This week it's vice versa. But either way, good to be on board, Johnny. It's not the same without you, but we know that you will be back for sure. And how's it going, Nick?
It's good, man. There's a lot going on. And by the way, I have to thank you, though, because it's the first time since we've talked. I had fun on review and preview, by the way.
Oh, dude, not a problem. That was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad I was able to get you. I'm sorry if the invite was, like, so last minute due to, some emergency circumstances. Well, I guess you call them emergency circumstances, but that's beside the point. The point is, I had a lot of fun. We were talking football. You were high off the Jets' victory that week. I was high off the Giants not losing because they were on the bye week. And this week, I'm the one that's high off the Giants winning this week. And you're the one that's high off the Jets not losing because they had the bye week this past week.
Well, no, I'm high off the Bills losing to the Vikings in an incredible, thrilling overtime victory, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Fair enough.
But follow the show on social media at Game On ETB, Twitter and Facebook, Instagram at Game On ETB, and you can follow Johnny and Hank social media on the bottom. All right, here we go. So we got a long show for you, so we're going to get right into it. There is more Nets news. We will get into that forefront. We will obviously recap Week 10. We will get into Week 11, Thursday Night Football. Is that incredible, by the way, 11 weeks? We're about to be in Week 11.
Nick, that's every single year. And Johnny and I pretty much say it every week. As soon as football season starts up again, it just flies by and it keeps on going. Like, it's crazy.
And also, yes, there's baseball news. I know that's a very shocking word to say after the baseball season, but yes, there is a lot of baseball news, including, I don't know, would you clarify it as a fun fact with the Astros GM being fired off a World Series winning team?
I don't know if I'd call that a fun fact. More like, as my good friend Sam Cardona would say, tea time. On, like, back when she used to, like, do her The Girl Who Talks Sports show pretty regularly. That was right around the time when, like, Tom and I met her, and roughly a year before she joined the Big Blue Avenue fold. But that was not, I swear that was not meant to be like
hey, good show, by the way. I listen to it every week.
I swear that wasn't meant to be a plug. It was just
no, you're totally fine. Hey, if you're going to promote good shows, I'm all for it.
It just reminded me of like an old segment that Sam used to do that we kind of brought along to Big Blue Avenue, and we haven't really had much tea with regards to the Giants this year, but
Hey, when you're 7-2, or you are right now, is that right?
Last year there was a gold mine of tea. I'll put it that way.
It's a good point. I mean, hey, you probably have the coach of the year.
Like a whole refrigerator of tea.
Well, I could say it's another beverage of choice because that's what a lot of Giants fans were thinking about last year. Not this year, though. 7-2 record, one of the best teams so far in the NFL, besides the Vikings. But but I think it was Tom, my co-host on ETB, was saying it was like the first time since the Yankees in like 1948 that a executive was fired off a World Series winning team.
That would have been, I want to say it was, what was his name? McPhail.
That's it. You're right.
That would have been Lee McPhail Sr., who apparently he did not get along well with Dan Topping and Del Webb, who were the current Yankee ownership at that time. And then because McPhail ended up like having bad behavior during a World Series celebration, they said, okay, you're gone. You're out of here. And interestingly enough, he actually is in the Hall of Fame, unlike the other two, but that was more for stuff he did after he left the Yankees.
but we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's get right into it. Unfortunately, we're going to have a two-part story again with the Nets. Let's start with the positive first. Jacque Vaughn hired as the new Nets head coach. He was the interim, and you hear this in every sport. Oh, well, let's attach him the interim tag. Let's see how long he survives, or if he's just going to coach until the end of the season, and then he's going to get canned, and then they're going to bring in another name. I'm happy about this. I think this was a great move. Jacque's one of those veteran guys who was around in the NBA. He wasn't your star. He wasn't your scrap. He was like in the middle. He always had a job in the NBA.
Yeah, somebody that's been around the block and a not so controversial hiring, and he's been around the Nets for what has it been 2-3 years?
Yeah, he's been around. I think he was also with Lawrence Frank when with the Clippers when he went there. Yeah, I know. I'm bringing back a name from the past. I happen to like
Nets fans I know of that still remembers Lawrence Frank. So
he was one of my favorite coaches, to be honest with you, because he was one of those scrappy guys that got everything out of you as a coach. I kind of when he went out the door, I kind of got annoyed, and that's when everything changed. I also like Kenny Atkinson until Kyrie and KD threw him out the door.
Well, what do you expect? It's the Players League. They have so much power, and
they have too much power.
Leagues where like the player really influences like a coach. I mean, you occasionally see that in the NFL. Every once in a while, it happened in MLB, but NHL, that's extremely rare. But yeah, back to the Nets hiring. I think it's a smart hiring because, like you said, he's been around the block. He's not very controversial. I mean, when the whole thing came out, one of the first names I saw was Mark Jackson. But then again, you remember that's a Stephen A. take, and Stephen A. has been trying to bring that guy back for like the past like what decade or something. Yep. I think that's how long it's been since he's had that job with the Golden State Warriors. But the real name that I've been hearing a lot was Ime Udoka, and even though in theory, I don't necessarily think that would be a bad decision. At the same time, when you consider the drama and the way that he left the Boston, well, actually, I don't really want to say that he left the Boston Celtics, because technically he's still suspended, and technically they'd let him like go elsewhere if they wanted to. But that's besides the point. If they hired Ime Udoka, like that would probably be pouring gasoline controversy into the controversial fire that's already been brewing with the Brooklyn Nets. Although, with that being said, I also think, even though this is neither here nor there, I don't really understand why the Boston Celtics would even allow him to be interviewed with the Brooklyn Nets. But that's a debate of stupidity for another day.
See, you're spot on with everything you've said so far. I agree with everything you've said. I'm glad you brought up Stephen A. because he's been all over social media, all over Twitter, the garbage dump that is Twitter lately. And basically, on First Take, he's been saying, well, Ime Udoka got screwed out of a job. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean he got screwed out of a job? He's a controversial human being.
First of all, were you a fly on the wall in the meetings that the Boston Celtics had? How do you know that he's innocent?
Well, I don't know if he said he was innocent. He just said he got screwed out of a job, Stephen A. said.
Again, was he even around the Celtics? How does he know that for sure?
See, the sick part is Stephen A. has like these really close sources to everything. And like you know how he always, I don't know how often you watch First Take, but he'll say that, oh, I called this player or I called this coach. By the way, he must have really good sources if he can talk to all these people.
I don't know that I fully believe that he has as many sources as he claims.
You think he's just like, if I just say this, people will believe me?
I feel like he does that for effect, and considering that he's one of the more powerful and polarizing figures in sports talk on TV, I feel like that's probably why he can get away with doing that. But I'm not, like I said, he's entertaining, but there's a lot of times where I think the guy's full of shit.
And I agree with you. And by the way, I think he's completely off the mark saying that Ime Udoka got screwed out of a job. The man was suspended for a year, not by the NBA. I don't want to open up this whole can of worms again, but basically not by the NBA, by the Celtics. Okay, so the technicality is because he didn't get suspended by the NBA, he technically could be let go by the Celtics and coach by tomorrow if he technically got released, which when that story came out with the Nets, I was just like, really? Like you just said earlier, we're going to pour gasoline on a fire? Like that's really what we're going to do here? But I'm glad they made this
the right thing by avoiding that.
Right. And I'm glad they made this hire. Jacque was a great player with the Nets. Basically, I would call him like your B plus type guy, where he could score for you. He could rebound. He's not going to put up 50 points. He's not a KD. He's not a Kyrie. He's not a LeBron. He's not a Giannis, who basically put the teams on their back. But I think it's a great hire, and we'll see what happens. And you know what's going to happen, though, because now that they're in Brooklyn, they're considered a second New York team. All the names are going to come out again. Well, this big name head coach is available for hire. Well, I was just like, whatever. But now you have a part two to this story. So Jacque's hired. That's all great. And KD did his little BS post-game interview after they won the first game, and KD handed him the basketball like when you pour the Gatorade over a coach after their first college football win.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, congratulations, in front of the whole team in the locker room. It was like all BS. We know KD doesn't
He did
care.
that for show, obviously.
Because he has problems with coaches, so he had to show I can get along with my coach. Let's see what happens when they lose their 8 or 9 in a row, and if he's still thinking like that. But then you have this story, which is Kyrie Irving tweets cryptic message as he remains suspended. Now, for most people who haven't been paying attention to Game On or ETB on the network here, Kyrie Irving tweeted out some pretty, I'm trying to be nice about this, garbage-like information about a anti-Semitic movie. And now it's coming back to bite him. And I'm sure you and Johnny went over this, and then we went over this. There was a six item list that he has to complete. And eventually it leads to this tweet, which came out. And by the way, before I read the tweet, are you surprised really that he would double and triple down?
No, because there's always something with him. Either trouble follows him or he's the one that sparks trouble. And he ended up sparking trouble. And no. And if anything, I would expect nothing less than controversy out of Kyrie Irving, as sad as that sounds.
Right. And I said that more for effect, more than being actually surprised, because we both know that he will double, triple down, and quadruple down if he doesn't get what he wants. So the tweet reads, I was not put here on earth to participate in any religious or political wars or incite racial disharmony or prejudice with communities. We're all equal under the sun, and I'm here to participate in the building of an equal world and follow in the world from the most high God, Yah.
Peace out. And then I don't know what that other emoji is.
Oh, I'm reading it from the New York Post article. But point is, that is a really confusing tweet to be putting out at a time when you're suspended and you need to complete a list to get back to the Nets.
He is a weirdo.
He's a character.
And maybe and not necessarily in the best way.
I mean, you have guys in the league like Patrick Beverley, who is a real character and will get up in people's faces, but that's okay. That's on the court. You want to be aggressive and play defense and hound players on the court, that's one thing. When you're doing it off the court and you're going after reporters, and I can't remember the guy's name, Nick Friedel from ESPN, who was questioning him in the post-game show about why are you promoting a movie? And he basically saying, you're dehumanizing me. Like, that sounds like a Kyrie problem, not a world problem.
Yeah, you think?
So I said this on ETB last week, and I'll say it here now. I don't think he comes back and plays this season. I really don't. Like, they keep saying that he's working towards coming back and that apparently he had a meeting with Jewish leaders. I don't know if that's more for PR or if that's more that they're trying to get to a conclusion. But I could see him retire if he doesn't get his way.
Oh, that reeks of PR.
Of course it does.
That absolutely reeks of PR.
Well, I knew it was a PR BS from the beginning when they said the suspension was a minimum of 5 games. Have you ever heard that in any sport?
A minimum of 5 games? No.
Have you ever heard the terminology that way before?
No.
I'll ask you about the hockey world because that's more your world than me. Usually when they suspend somebody for fighting, it's clear cut and this is how many games you sit out, right?
Correct.
So MLB, when you get into a fight, they clearly say this guy did more of this fight. You get 10 games. The people below it get 5 or 3 or whatever, and these guys get a fine. Like, I've never heard of a minimum of 5 games.
No.
That just tells me that the Adam Silver PR machine is not
every NHL suspension. I've seen pretty hefty ones. They'll straight up say, "Oh, he's suspended for like 20 something games," like depending on the severity of the hit.
Who's the guy on Washington, the one that's always getting in trouble for the hits in the NHL?
Are you talking about Tom Wilson?
Is it him? Yeah, where he constantly causes issues with the way he plays. He's a defenseman, right? If I remember correctly.
No. He's a winger.
Oh, he's not?
He's
Is he a winger?
He's really talented, don't get me wrong, but he's also very dirty. And trust me, I should know. I'm a Ranger fan. I remember what happened at the end of the 2021 season where he like kept hitting a lot of our guys, and then
he wipes out players, right? Essentially, he wipes out players essentially, right, with his hits.
Oh yeah, you can ask Islander fans too; they will essentially tell you the same thing. He is very dirty, although he's not. He's up there with Matt Cook on like the level of some of my like least favorite NHL players of all times in terms of just being straight up dirty. But the tough part is he's also very talented, like a decent goal scorer.
Right, and that's the issue here. So Kyrie, we're not questioning his talent. Kyrie is a talented basketball player.
At least Tom Wilson doesn't like any anti-Semitic remark or do anything very controversial beyond just the hits on the ice.
Can you imagine if Tom Wilson, on top of everything he did as a dirty player, put out an anti-Semitic message on social media? His career in the NHL would probably be over.
I think he'd be hated even worse than Tony DeAngelo.
Right. And so with Kyrie, like, we all know that he hit the game-winning shot next to LeBron when he was with Cleveland and they beat the Warriors, which was an impossible feat at the time because the Warriors were the best team in the NBA, ironically with KD being on that team. And
no, that was 26. No, that was what led to
KD. Oh, was that before? Was that before KD?
No, remember the Thunder blew the 3-1 lead?
Yes. Okay, you're right. My mistake. That was Kyrie and Russ and oh my God, wow. That was when the big three were still in OKC. Totally forgot about that. You're right. But my point is, Kyrie's talented. He hit the game-winning shot in that final. It wasn't LeBron. It was Kyrie. So talent's not an issue. It's can this man get his head on straight, which I don't think he can. KD also has come out and said that he thinks this whole situation is out of control and just let Kyrie back on the court. Of course you would say that. What else is KD going to say? Is he going to say no, keep him off the court?
Nope. That's pretty much what I would have expected him to say, essentially.
It's a weird situation. The Nets, I would just basically put the Nets to bed at this point. I don't think they're going to go anywhere this season. I don't care if Kyrie and KD and the next young all-star they trade for gets to this team. I don't think they're going anywhere. It is what it is. I mean, unfortunately, I feel bad for Jacque Vaughn because I think he deserved a better situation as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I would stay far, far away from Kyrie Irving at every turn if I could avoid it. All right, let's move on. Now let's talk about the fun stuff and get away from the cryptic stuff. Let's recap Week 10. So my record got destroyed this past week. How did you do?
I think I did all right, like all things considered. I don't think I was like terrible. I should probably see the records, but like I just remember writing them down like on a whim. I know for a fact I had the Giants winning. I definitely got the Bills game wrong. I know you got the Vikings right, so congratulations.
Thank God. It was really lucky, though, to be honest. I mean, I will get to this more, but Josh Allen throwing the pick in the near the end zone was sealed that game. But all right, let's go through some of this. So some of the games I look at, I'm kind of mad at Seattle. That's kind of my anger with Geno Smith.
Well, I can see why, because you don't want to root for Tom Brady to be successful.
Well, it's not just that. We all thought Seattle was. Well, who did you take? I don't remember.
I took the Bucs.
Oh, did you? Oh, right, because you like Tom Brady. Right.
No, I'm like, I just, even when he like struggled, I never really felt safe picking against Tom Brady. Although, granted, this year he hasn't looked quite the same, but still,
it was a weird back and forth game.
He's fucking Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time.
I'll give you that for sure. Even as a Jet fan, I'll give you that. But This game was kind of weird. Did you watch the game, or were you able to get up and watch the game? Or
No, I slept through like most of it. I
but
didn't really start watching football until I went to the B-dubs and watched the Giants.
but it was a weird game. I got up. I didn't catch the beginning of it. I caught most of the beginning of the second quarter. Very odd back and forth. The Seahawks tried to run the ball most of the first half, got gobbled up, and which was weird because the Bucs defense has been horrible all year. And they said, you know what? New game plan. Geno Smith is going to throw like 40 passes in the second half, and we're just not going to run the football. And it kind of worked a little bit. The game went back and forth. I don't know if you saw it on social media, but Tom Brady almost caught a pass.
Yeah, and he like slipped and fell, and the Seahawks defender caught it.
And then he got called for a tripping penalty. I'm not. By the way, folks, I'm not making that up. Go check it on social media and go look it up in the game.
Which is funny because if you think about the tuck rule 20 years ago,
that was him. Yeah,
he like stuck his leg out, tried to like trip Beekert when Beekert was the one that recovered the fumble.
Yes.
Although he also claims that Charles Woodson hit him in the helmet as he was like trying to throw. So
that's the one thing frustrates me about Tom Brady, that he's always looking for the call. He doesn't want to make the play. He wants the refs to call the penalty every time.
Either way, it would have been offsetting penalties had there been no regardless.
And the worst part is, and the funnier part about that tripping penalty, he was on his backside when he committed the tripping penalty. He was literally like on his back because he got tackled down, essentially going to. They actually threw him the football. I couldn't believe it. Usually, when you send your quarterback out into the slot, they're not. That's more for a direct snap. You're not expecting to throw the football to your quarterback. They actually threw it to him. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that was definitely nuts. But I mean, hey, Buccaneers, got to give them credit. And hey, they're now in sole possession of first place at 5-5, one game ahead of the Falcons, especially in the all-important loss column, as John Sterling often says.
That division is such a joke.
I'm going to be using that until every team is like done with their bye week, or unless we're talking about the AFC South, because those teams have had a tie game.
The bye weeks are late this year also. I think I saw they're as late as 13 or 14, if I wasn't mistaken, which is late for buys. But just to look around at some of the other games, no one really cares about the Falcons, Panthers. That was kind of a crapshoot, even though the Panthers pulled that one out. I couldn't believe this was an early game, but Minnesota-Buffalo was an early game on the schedule. Were you a little shocked by that?
Yes, I would have thought they would have at least gotten like a primetime spot, or maybe that they would have been like flex. But at the same time, it's not like the Sunday night matchup was a bad one, because you had Justin Herbert against a really good 49ers team who you and I have discussed and have been on record and saying is a sneaky good team. And I still think they could potentially like upset Philadelphia if Philadelphia like runs roughshod and gets into the playoffs.
I like the Niners, and especially with McCaffrey now being more free to run the football, unlike he was with the Panthers. McCaffrey's going to break out and have a party over there.
Oh yeah.
But this Minnesota, what'd you say?
Run CMC.
Oh, run CMC. Yes. But this Minnesota Buffalo game was insane. Back and forth. There was a lot of questions before this game. Was Josh Allen going to play? He had the elbow contusion, I think is what they went with the injury. And it was just a unique perspective. You have great wide receivers on both sides. You had Diggs and you have Jefferson. By the way, I agree with Tom, with co-host on ETB. He thinks that Jefferson is the number one wide receiver in the NFL. I think him and Diggs are the top two, to be honest.
I would probably agree with that take. Jefferson is pretty fantastic. I mean, that catch that he made at the end, oh my gosh.
That was insane. He's going to be an amazing wide receiver for many years to come. Now,
by the way, thank goodness Howie Roseman skipped out on him.
That would have been insane.
Can you imagine him and Jalen Hurts?
Oh wow, that would have been a whole different team. But this game was so weird. There was a lot of Josh Allen looked like he got hit multiple times and he looked hurt in this game. They basically had to peel him off the field every time he got hit.
I'm starting to think that maybe the Bills might want to like rest Josh Allen for a bit if you're thinking about like long term, because if he keeps getting hit like and hurt like that, I mean, you look at their schedule, I would say it's pretty manageable like going forward. I mean, you bench him against the Cleveland Browns, no big deal. The Browns still don't have Deshaun Watson for reasons we've already discussed and will not be getting into. Then you got the Detroit Lions. That's still a winnable game. New England Patriots. I mean, look, even though they're above 500, do we really think that's unrealistic to just win even without Josh Allen? Like, depending on the severity of his injury, like, let him rest up, let him get healthy, and then maybe 3 weeks, it's not that unrealistic. You play the Jets. Then maybe we could start talking about breaking them back in and getting them ready for the playoffs, because this is too talented of a team to waste, like with regards to Super Bowl aspirations. And I still think the Buffalo Bills probably will win the division. I really do think top to bottom, they're the best team in the AFC East. Although if you look at Miami, they are pretty damn close.
By the way, a fun fact for the season, the AFC East is the only division over 500.
Not only are they over 500, but I believe if the season were to end today, I think every one of them would be in the playoffs.
That's incredible. Holy cow.
Even the Patriots might like have a spot, because remember, you now have that extra spot in the playoffs, and so you could be like barely over 500 and you'd still like get in.
But that's incredible. I didn't even put that. I knew that they were all over 500. I didn't realize they would have all made the playoffs if it ended today. That would have been insane too. But just looking through some of the other games quickly, Denver and Tennessee, no one cares. But Denver again lost on a fumble by Russell Wilson.
Broncos country, let's ride.
That joke will never die.
Oh man.
Jacksonville, Kansas City, no surprise there. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. That's all I can really say there.
That was to be expected. Miami destroying Cleveland, also to be expected.
Vegas completely, I don't know what they were doing. Vegas kept dropping the line. So it started at like 5.5, and it made it all the way down to 3.5, favorite only for Miami. Did they really think that Cleveland was going to compete in this game? I didn't.
Did they apparently think that Watson was coming back? I didn't.
I don't think that would have. I actually think that would have made the line worse because he hasn't played in forever.
Yeah, no, but still, that Cleveland got a little bit of hype. They had that decent start, but then you realize, oh well, they're without Watson, and as Mike Tomlin said a couple years ago, the Browns is the Browns.
Yes.
Well,
I remember that.
I don't know if I'm going to go with the nameless gray faces comment, but yes.
Right. But no, Tua looks amazing, and I thought I read a statistic that every game he started and finished this year, they've won. Any game he's been hurt, they don't win. That obviously is a testament to your quarterback, who brings huge value to your team.
And like I said, I've always been very high on the Tua train. I think he has insane natural talent, a great arm, can move his feet if need be. Like, he just needed to be in the right system. He needed an offensive-oriented head coach.
McDaniel, yeah.
Look where the Dolphins are. And like I said, would anyone be surprised if they made a deep run in the playoffs?
I wouldn't. I think I said it a few weeks ago on ETB that I wouldn't be surprised if they possibly made a run just on momentum alone to the Super Bowl if they had the momentum to ride it. But they have to be healthy, and Tua needs to be on his game like 1,000% for that to happen.
Detroit-Chicago, by the way, was an interesting game.
It was an interesting game. I can't believe the Lions came back and won 31-30. Like,
I mean, I think that's more of a Bears problem than it is a Justin Fields problem. I mean, their defense. Ugh. Isn't that Eberflus supposed to be a defensive coach?
Yes. Yep. That whole team's a joke, in my opinion. And Justin Fields, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of turmoil there in the offseason, whatever that's going to be. You can't lose to the Lions, though.
All right. Well, now I got to talk about my team, the New York Football Giants. And look, I am not going to lie. This was another ugly win, but would you rather have an ugly win or a pretty loss?
Oh no, you're taking the win each time.
That would be taking the pretty loss would be as dumb as taking the mystery box.
I knew you were going to do that right there.
I told you that joke was coming.
But you know what? I have to give credit where credit is due again. Saquon, 152 yards. I mean, this man is incredible. Like when he's healthy, he can run.
Tom and I actually, Tom, Sam, and I, we all had kind of a tougher time this week when it comes to player of the week. And I don't want to spoil it, but Saquon was definitely one of the candidates. But another guy that I think really deserves a lot of credit is Dexter Lawrence. Sexy Dexy, as they call him, had some huge tackles. And he actually had his season high 5 sacks, which is a career high for him in a season. Another big part. And once again, Wink Martindale's fun house, as Tom likes to call them. They did a really good job stopping the opposition. Stopping the run, though, was kind of an issue because Pierce did really well in the running game. And
he looked good.
If you saw our latest episode of Big Blue Avenue, I said that was the one guy on the Texans that scares me more than anybody. And I said that if you stop him, then you're in good shape because it means you pretty much have to force Davis Mills to throw the ball a lot. And, well, the Giants didn't necessarily do the best job at stopping Pierce. Like, one of those runs he had was with Dexter Lawrence, not even on the field. So at the same time, I think all things considered, this was a good day for the Giants defense. But again, it could be better. But at the same time, it might not seem like it, but this was actually, in my eyes, a test for the Giants. Now, you might be thinking, why would I call this a test if they're going up against a team that's like number 1 in the NFL draft? The reason I say that, look at the Giants' schedule this year. How many games going into the season would you like go up and tell me, oh, the Giants are totally supposed to win this game? Not too many. Like, I think the fact that they won this game and like they were expected to tells you a lot about your character, the team's character. And look, I got to tell you, next week is going to be another one of those tests because the Lions are the same way. Now, granted, the Lions obviously have been more competitive in their games, so to speak, than the Houston Texans, but I still would consider the Lions game to be a trap because you know that Dan Campbell is going to have his team pretty much competitive on a weekly basis. But at the same time, again, if you pressure Jared Goff and make him have to beat you, you probably know I'm not very high on Jared Goff. In fact, I never really was to begin with, even in the 2018 season.
Me too.
And the Giants are in great shape and they should definitely be able to win. Although I think the other obstacle that they have is they could be very guilty of looking ahead to the Thanksgiving game in Dallas. But in any event, I will gladly take 7-2. And you want to know another guy who had a great game? Daniel Jones, 13 for 17, 197 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, no picks, career high 153.3 passer rating.
He looked good. I'll give you that. Like, he's coming into his own. And I made this comparison with Johnny when we did the picks.
76.5 completion percentage also, by the way.
He was really good. I said this to Johnny last week that in the beginning, Daniel Jones kind of reminded me of Eli in some aspects where he wouldn't move his feet. It was cement feet, as I used to call it. Because Eli...
Or as the Pope would say, a tree's more mobile than Eli.
Yes. But yeah, I used to say like Eli would get nervous and lock up, and then he would just take the sack instead of throwing the football away, instead of running out of the pocket. And Daniel Jones was doing that at first, but now I said the first game that really brought that to my eyes was in London when he was kind of fighting the leg injuries, the foot injuries, and he actually took off out of the pocket and was picking up the first downs. And I kind of saw that in this game. He picked up a few of the first downs himself. So now he realizes, oh, wait, I can be confident now. I can move the football. I don't have to rely on everybody. I can move and get the first down on my own. And that's where I saw the confidence. The one bad for this game,
yes,
the David Mills experience had 319 receiving yards.
Davis Mills, you mean? Yeah.
Well, I'm calling. Oh, what did I say?
You said David.
Oh, Davis Mills experience. That's a joke I make because how is he a starting quarterback in this league?
Well, again, remember that Bill O'Brien pretty much left them with a really bad mess.
Just like Gettleman, right?
Oh, except Bill Bryan's mess was worse because look at how many draft picks like he got rid of during that time.
I'll give you that one for sure. But good win, 7-2. The Jets are 6-3. We're doing good.
By the way, do you want me to give you another Daniel Jones fun fact?
Oh, yes, I do want to hear another fun fact.
Last 6 games, Daniel Jones has thrown as many picks as Kenny Golladay has touchdown pass catches.
So 0. Yeah, wow. Wait a minute, I had to put that in my head for a second. I'm like, wait, he's not on the field. That doesn't.
No, Kenny Golladay was pretty bad. Kenny Golladay, if anything, almost screwed the Giants with some really bad drops. And then I'm trying to remember his name, the rookie wide receiver that the Giants had. And let me show you a fun fact that Tom actually texted us. And after the game, by us, I'm obviously talking about my group chat, but that would be Isaiah Hodgins.
Oh, yeah.
31 yards this season. Kenny Golladay, 22. Hodgins only played 1 game.
Oh, my God. You can't make this up. I mean, Golladay is a $72 million disaster, in my opinion.
I'm gonna die on this hill. Worst free agent acquisition in Giants history.
What about Slayton?
No, Slayton was a draft pick.
Oh, was Slayton a draft pick?
Slayton had a good game. He had that big touchdown catch. That was a late round pick that Gettleman made. Probably one of his better ones, which doesn't really say much.
But I don't know. I'm happy that New York football is actually thriving instead of dying like it has the last couple of years, and we can actually hopefully look forward to playoff runs from both. Hopefully, the way it looks now.
It's knock on wood.
Knock on wood, even though I don't have any here. Other games, the Saints at the Steelers. I'm a little shocked that the Steelers won.
So am I, but at the same time, the Saints aren't great, and it was a home game for the Steelers. Like, that was just one of those games I bet a coin flip.
But wasn't it true? I read a statistic that the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, like has a horrible record against the Saints.
That sounds about right.
Like they said, like he has like essentially no wins against the Saints.
Yeah, because 2018 they had that really close game at the Superdome that essentially ended any hope that they had, and that was the game where the Steelers almost came back and won that game. And then 2014, I don't remember, but I think they lost. Yeah, no, I don't think he's played too many games against the Saints either, so that makes sense.
But I think he was like an offer. I think they were saying like against the Saints. Kenny Pickett. I really want to see Kenny Pickett do well. He deserves every opportunity to make that team go.
Yes.
I think we've seen the end of Trubisky for the most part. Talk about journeyman quarterback.
He never should have even started to begin with, but that's a debate.
That's another issue. But yeah, that was kind of a crapshoot game. Najee Harris had 100 yards. He's been hurt quite a bit, so it's actually good to see him back. Just some of the other games. The other one I wanted to look at was Indianapolis and Vegas. Jeff Saturday.
The Raiders. I'm sorry. You should be very, very
ashamed
about losing that game. I mean, look, I didn't fall for the bait of the Raiders being like highly favored. I think I took the Colts, even though I had like the Raiders maybe winning closer. Because like the reason being is because there's no way the Raiders should have been favored this much, considering how much of a disaster they were. And no thanks to, former failed Belichick assistant coach Josh McDaniels in that department.
Offensive genius.
And let me talk about the Colts for a second and the series of events that happened this past week. So you fire Frank Reich. Okay. Was he the problem? I don't think necessarily he was. I mean, he did have a winning record, all things considered, 40-33-1. He's going to get an offensive coordinator job elsewhere, and we know what he did with Nick Foles when he was the offensive assistant for the Philadelphia Eagles. So
he's no slouch. He will get another job.
I wouldn't say I feel too badly for him in that sense, although I do feel like there's an alternate universe where a certain quarterback that they ruined sticks around for a longer amount of time. Injuries aren't as big of a deal, and if Andrew Luck is still there, I would imagine that Frank Reich probably still has his job at this point if we're talking about an alternate universe. But that's neither here nor there. You fired Frank Reich, probably not the wrong decision, but they needed to make changes. Although I also think that Chris Ballard should have gone with him. But again,
I'm not a fan of Ballard either.
Ballard's made some questionable draft picks, and I think he kept trying to get his quarterback, thinking, "Oh, I can replace Andrew Luck easily." When he never really looked at the foundation of the Colts as a whole and just did not fix them. But in any event, Chris Ballard should be gone too, and I think he probably will be gone after the season. But
I don't think him and Irsay see eye to eye, to be honest, either. Now
we get to who you replace Frank Reich with. You go out of your way and hire Jeff Saturday, who, make no mistake, was a terrific player and a great center back in his day, as when he was with Peyton Manning. And he's not even on the coaching staff. And he what does he work somewhere in the front office?
So he was technically, how when you've been with a team for many years and then you retire and then the team says, "Hey, we'll throw some money at you. You come be an assistant to the GM," or it's one of those side jobs when you've been with a team for a long time.
Yeah, basically. He wasn't part of the coaching staff, and he's and I believe, fun fact, he was the first interim coach that wasn't even a member of the assistants on the staff too.
He wasn't. You're right.
So
and
you go out of your way and hire him, and I think part of it had to do with the fact that maybe you're bringing a legend into the fold, but I think the real reason that they hired him is because even though I thought he gave a great speech, Jeff Saturday, don't get me wrong, he's a guy who I feel like is going to be a yes man to Irsay.
Oh, you mean a puppet strings guy?
Correct.
By the way, I think,
honest,
yeah, go ahead.
If Dan Snyder didn't exist, I would probably consider Irsay to be the worst owner in the NFL.
I agree with you totally, 100% on that one, and that doesn't even include the skeletons in the closet either.
No.
But I think this might be a fun fact. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think we've ever had a center as a head coach in the NFL.
I feel like there might have been, but you're right. That's pretty rare.
Because I was thinking back to other sports. Like in MLB, it's usually a catcher or a pitcher that ends up being a manager or coach because they really assess the strategy of the game. The center in football, I never thought of really as the strategy assessment guy for a team. I like Jeff Saturday. He's great. I think he's great at ESPN, but I don't understand jumping from the ESPN analyst job to being a head coach. Never had. Do you know what his highest level experience is as a coach?
Who, Jeff Saturday?
Yeah.
Wasn't it at a high school level?
High school, right? That's the highest level. He never coached in college.
Above 500 too.
Right. So he's never coached in the college level even. And I was listening to Mad Dog on Sirius. I listened to him every day, and he was going on screaming and yelling about how, well, you gave Jeff Saturday a job. Why is Joe Thomas an analyst at NFL Network, and he's never gone to a broadcasting school? And I'm like, wait, what? What? What is that? I get it. It's the same sentiment in a sense. Like, it used to be like when we were in school going for broadcasting or whatever we were going for, you needed to have the experience. You needed the college degree. You needed all this stuff to get the job you wanted. Now, if you could just prove you have the ability, the college degree doesn't matter to some places anymore. It's prove you have the ability to do something, and companies are willing to take a chance on you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a weird situation, but somehow, because of the fact that they were playing the Las Vegas Raiders, they came out and won that game, and good for them. They're 4-5-1, and if we look at the standings here, I believe they're 1.5 games out, but 2 games behind Tennessee in the all-important loss column.
We should get that as a drop for this show.
Like I said, I've listened to John Sterling so many times over the years. That's become one of my favorite things.
You even have the mannerism down for it, which is even scarier.
Oh, and I even have I also have a shirt that says that's baseball Susan from RotoWare.
That's great.
No, I've been a big fan of his for so long, pretty much since I started following the Yankees.
So have I. Just a few more games. Let's see. Oh, you have the Mike McCarthy revenge game.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you when you decided to pass the ball on 3rd and 4 and then went for it on 4th down when you could have tried for a 50-something yard field goal from Brett Maher?
The Cowboys are a joke. I'm sorry. Like, everyone thinks they were going to compete. Now, I'll give Dak a pass partially because he was hurt. He was injured, so it's not really his fault what goes on the field if he's hurt. But he just does not look like the same quarterback. And I read a stat also that I think he's the second worst in the NFL in 3rd and 4th down completion percentage. Historically, I think they sit behind Tebow.
How much money is he getting paid again?
Oh, God. I have no idea. I mean, I could look it up, but...
I mean, who was it that said a few years ago that they were going to... that whatever contract they gave Dak would come back to haunt them?
So he's making a little over 13 million. Oh, wait. 13 million plus they restructured. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making somewhere between 13 and 15 million a year.
Still, the fact that he's taking up a good amount of their cap and that he's playing like this, that's not good. Not to mention, by the way, you want to know another fun fact?
Yeah.
This was, I believe, the largest lead that the Cowboys have blown in their history when entering the 4th quarter.
Just leave it to the Cowboys to create new nuances.
An accident waiting to happen.
Oh, God. I don't know. And Green Bay was coming in sputtering. Like, they're down on their luck. And they didn't even have their wide receivers.
Somehow you make the Packers come back with all that in mind. And by the way, can I say another thing about that weird coaching call that Mike McCarthy made? I mean, I don't necessarily think going for it on 4th down was the issue because, I mean, look, 50-plus yard field goal is really a 50-50. You don't know whether that's going to go in or not. But when it's 3rd and 4 and you're essentially in 4-down territory and the Packers are having trouble stopping the run, why don't you just feed Zeke or Tony Pollard? Let them get a few yards and then
Duh.
And then 4th and 2 or 4th and 1, maybe you do the same thing. But nope.
That's Mike McCarthy for you.
Not the idea of passing over your kicker, even though Brett Maher is money in those situations.
He's been great. He's been one of the better kickers in the NFL this year.
Lambeau Field's also one of the tougher places for kickers too. So I can kind of understand why you would want to pass, and I get why Mike McCarthy said, "Oh, we're playing for the touchdown," but yet that's what makes even less sense about the fact that he even went for it on 4th down or not so much that he went for it on 4th down, the whole execution of the 3rd and 4 and the 4th and 4.
I'll steal another line. That's baseball, Susan. That's Mike McCarthy.
Yep. And then, funny thing is, that wasn't even his only dumb decision because look at the Eagles game.
Oh, God. Yeah, I remember that too. Oh.
And Jaguar Gator 9 brought up a good point in his dumb decision video about that. I think that might have been even worse than the Barry Switzer decision to try to run Emmitt Smith on 4th and 1 and then do the same play again when the Eagles stopped him.
I mean, you can't make it up. I know Mike McCarthy signed a decent long-term deal, if I'm not mistaken, with the Cowboys, and if he's going to keep making dumb decisions like this, he's not going to last. Because you know how Jerry is. How about them Cowboys? We need to win.
Well, here's the Cowboys for you. Unfortunately, they're in the same territory as a certain pinstripe team that we know and love because now they're getting at the drought, and they have a drought of not winning, and the Cowboys have for a while have a lot of talent where, much like the Yankees, it would appear they have a chance at winning a championship, but then you see ownership appears to be more content with like, making money and being competitive. Like Jerry may say that like he wants to win and all, but like at the same time, like he also isn't like front office / he isn't necessarily the best GM. I mean, I'll give Jerry this. He's decent at drafting. Like, every now and then he'll pick up the chalk, although I don't really know how much of that has to do with Jerry or whether that's like his son who's like helping him with his decisions.
No, his son is too busy wiping off his glasses.
I digress. Like Jerry has his moments where he can be good at drafting, but at the same time, like he also can be a bit meddlesome, and he'll also hand out big contracts to certain guys and look at their cap space. Like it's not like that's the Cowboys for you in a nutshell.
Right. And then there was a few.
They're one of the big teams. They're going to continue to make money, so it won't really make
it's like the Yankees, like you just said, they're the organization in that league that prints money. So unless they fall off a cliff and they end up bankrupt, like a certain cryptocurrency firm with the Miami Heat having a deal on naming rights,
or unless you land on a certain wedge in Wheel of Fortune. Shout out Johnny for
yeah, you got to have a game show reference on this show. But as long as they print money, they don't care. Then there was 2 games left. Arizona, by the way, the battle of the backup quarterbacks in this game, which made no sense to me. And then Arizona had their 3rd string quarterback in.
I believe that was former Giants legend Colt McCoy.
Yes.
And fun fact, the last time I remember I call Colt McCoy a Giants legend, albeit very, very loosely, because he was the last Giants quarterback to win in Seattle and the only Giants quarterback to beat Russell Wilson.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. Wow.
Yep.
I mean, Colt McCoy had 238 yards, which I'm a little surprised. Arizona actually won a game. I mean, Kyler was hurt. He's probably too busy playing Call of Duty. But the new version of Call of Duty, Tom and Nick keep making that reference. I don't.
Yeah, they love that game. I know.
But that wasn't the best of games. And then obviously you had the Chargers at the 49ers. This game had a lot of hype. The Niners ended up winning, which we all expected.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy G looked a little off, but
Jimmy G, you want to know another weird fact?
Yeah.
He has like a really good record in games where he doesn't throw for a touchdown. How does that make sense? Make it make sense.
Wow. That's all I can say. I didn't even think that. So I guess he's just getting all the yards. Maybe he's handing the ball off for rushing touchdowns, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is solid, I'll say this, but oftentimes it's more like he doesn't lose.
I mean, I forgot who the backup is all of a sudden. Who's the guy they drafted in the that got hurt, was starting earlier this year for the Niners?
Trey Lance.
I think Trey Lance has become an afterthought. Like, I know he's hurt. He's out for the rest of the season. But I wonder if Jimmy G won the job back.
It's definitely something to ponder. But like I said, he is one of the weirdest like quarterbacks I've ever seen. And like, I mean, he's carried them to certain wins, but more often than not, when they win, it feels like it's like he just doesn't lose because of all the talent they had. I mean, can you imagine if he played for any other team?
God, like I said, when you insert someone to another team, it's a completely different foxhole you're climbing down. But all right, now we got through week 10. It's time to start week 11, Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. Titans and the Forsaken Packers we were just talking about. The Packers are a 3-point favorite. It's hard to take the Packers as a favorite on any game.
I'm going to assume you're going with the Titans.
Yeah, I think the Packers are a little too up and down.
Did Johnny give you his pick for this game?
No, he didn't give me his pick for this game. I guess I'll have to ask him after. But
so I'm going to actually go against you, and I'm going to take the Packers because, I mean, if you look at what's happened in years past, like, this isn't the first time that they've started off 4-6. 2016 team did the same thing. Now, obviously, am I suggesting they're going to roll over to the playoffs only to get clobbered in the NFC Championship game? NFC Championship game again? Not necessarily, but I think they'll probably have a little bit more fight in them in this game, so I'll go with the Packers just to be different, I guess. It feels like a coin flip this game, honestly.
This is a complete coin flip in every way, shape, or form. I don't even know what to make of this game, to be honest.
Yep.
I mean, it's on Amazon. That's all I could say. Usually, the games on Amazon have not been good games this year, so
Which
it
I
is.
think the NFL probably did on purpose, and at least I'm getting the crazy commissioners mixed up. Roger Goodell at least is doing better in that department than a certain moron that thinks the World Series trophy is a piece of tin.
Don't worry, we'll get to him maybe in a little bit. But
Well, we might.
all right, let's talk the magical world of baseball.
Yay!
So here we go. We'll start with some interesting news right off the bat. Astros part ways with GM James Click. This was interesting. He was an R&D guy from what I was understanding, and they made him the GM. I mean, he did pretty good with this team. They offered him a 1-year deal with a pay raise. He wanted a longer term deal, and they basically said, "There's the door."
What's that phrase that I've often heard you say?
Oh, that it's all about the money?
Yes, that's the one. Oh man, I don't think that it was entirely all about the money. I think the Astros kind of did this to spite him because from what I heard, Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros, was taking so much of the credit for like them winning the World Series and whatnot. And he wasn't the only member of the GM group that got canned. I think it was the assistant GM too that they let go because of money reasons. And what does that tell you? Like, it totally reeks of a power struggle. And we talked about this before. It's the first time since the 47 Yankees with, I believe it was Larry McPhail, that, you let go of one of your like higher ups after winning a World Series. But
it's such a rarity that you would release someone from your executives after you just won.
And not to mention, you continued to build a strong foundation of young players. Now, who the Astros replace, I mean, time will tell. I'm sure it'll probably be someone baseball savvy, but at the same time, they are lucky that they've got a factory of young talent building up. But who knows? Maybe this could be the moment where they jump the shark, even though it might not seem as big right now. It could come back to haunt them later on down the line, I think, because whenever you see something like that, nothing good really comes out of it.
I mean, the Yankees are probably jealous of the Astros prospect machine that goes on there. Like, the Yankees, don't get me wrong, they've had a lot of great.
I don't know why they should be jealous, because you're a big market team and you could have just adapted to the times, but that's a discussion for another day.
And now you're hearing all the ridiculousness that if Brian Cashman didn't come back, would the Yankees go after James Click? I'm like, can we slow down, please? We know Brian Cashman's coming back. They're just playing power struggle, as the words you used earlier.
Well, I can think of an organization that probably would help with getting James Click, and one that is looking for a GM. I want to see if you can guess which one it is.
Oh God, I would have to. I don't know. That's a good question.
Because my buddy who I talked to, one of the guys that I talked to in my last episode of Hitting for the Cycle.
Oh wait, the Tigers?
Big Tigers fan, John Check. He was really he over the course of the past month and a half of looking up Scott Harris, he seems really excited about the hire. And based on what I know about Scott Harris, he seems to me like someone who really knows what he's doing and has a really good handle on how baseball is supposed to be run in this day and age. And I would not be surprised if somehow he went out and interviewed James Click and decided to make him his general manager, because Scott Harris technically isn't GM. He's the president of baseball operations.
Right.
So I could possibly see the Detroit Tigers being one of those teams. I also think the New York Mets would be among teams that could probably interview him, because I heard there was talk about the Milwaukee Brewers president leaving. And I think they wanted him, but then who knows, maybe James Click becomes an option for the Mets. And if I'm being honest, and because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Billy Epler is like not necessarily the GM. I think he's like more of the president or like the higher
He's
up.
like a higher up, like he in management. He's not really the GM.
Though if I'm being honest, I don't really think Billy Epler is that great of the president.
I don't either. I mean, I almost was going to throw the Red Sox out there for Click. I think that would have been a good spot.
Is Hines a dual role in that situation though?
I think he does, but I think they need to change the scenery in the worst way over there. Like,
yeah, I mean, because here's the thing, Himes made some good moves during his time with the Red Sox, but what he did last year, he had a lot of head scratchers. Like, I would say letting Schwarber, I don't know how you let Schwarber get like, I don't know how you get outbid like that when letting Kyle Schwarber go. You should have kept him around, would have solved your first base problems, and you wouldn't have had to go after Eric Hosmer.
I mean, Schwarber kind of reminds me, and this is, you might be the only one who gets this reference because you understand classic baseball, but
Sure.
it kind of reminds me of Eric Hinsky.
Yes, I remember him very well.
Because if you remember Hinsky, I think, and this is an incredible fact that I don't know why I remember it. I think he played on every team in the AL East, if I'm not mistaken.
You would happen to be correct. In fact, he was in back-to-back World Series with the 08 Rays and then the 09 Yankees.
Which I don't know why I remember that, but I just remember he's
also
had
on the 07 Red Sox. Actually,
right.
No, 3 consecutive World Series. Sorry.
Right. Yes.
Don't know why I blanked out on the 07 Red Sox, but he was, I know for a fact that he was also on the Blue Jays, and I don't remember whether or not he was on the Orioles, but yeah, that sounds about right.
I think he was on the Rays, if I'm not mistaken, also.
Yeah, no, I said he was on the 08 Rays.
Right.
He made the last out in the 08 World Series. Brad Lynch shut him out.
Oh, God. But yeah, but that's what it kind of reminded me of in that sense. I was like, I could see beating that role. Kyle Schwarber and Eric Hinsky kind of having that same.
Except Schwarber is like more of like, a
power hitter,
leader and a good power hitter.
Hinsky kind of got anchored at first base pretty much for the most part.
Yeah, but still, I definitely think letting him go kind of came back to hurt the Red Sox, especially.
I agree.
Out and mashed, and probably could have won the World Series MVP had the Phillies pulled off the upset.
That was an incredible World Series. I mean, the comeback by the Phillies.
I thought it was decent. I mean, let me put it this way: if the Phillies didn't have that comeback, I don't think that World Series would have been worth watching.
I think that's one of those teams in the Phillies that they need to bring everybody back and just retool, add 1 or 2 more people to it.
Because I think maybe if they can probably find a way to improve like next year, but afterwards, their decline is going to be inevitable because as much as Dave Dombrowski is a winner and as good as
older players,
as good as he is at building a roster like to win now, that then your prospect pool becomes dead. I mean, again, look at the Tigers and you can ask John. He will tell you the same thing, that when Dave Dombrowski left, it took the Tigers a long time to really completely rebuild their farm system. And in fact, I would argue that they're still trying to work on rebuilding their farm system, because even though Al Avila had some solid drafts, there's also a reason that he got canned this past season.
It's interesting. We all know James Click's going to get a job somewhere. Like, it's no accident.
Got rid of Dave pretty quickly too.
Right. I could even see him going if Dombrowski wanted him down in Philly. I could see him going there too. That's a little more of a stretch, but
oh no, I don't see that happening.
Can you imagine?
I would laugh hysterically, but I don't see it.
But all right, let's finish off on the awards, because this is always a fun situation to talk about. So, MLB Award Winners. So, where do you stand on Rookie of the Year?
See, this one's tough because I really like Adley Rutschman for the Orioles. I think he could potentially be a face of their franchise for many years to come. Really good catcher, although I don't know that he's going to last like much longer there at that position. But fact of the matter is, he was a big reason why the Orioles were actually relevant and even had meaningful games in September. However, I would give a slight edge to J-Rod for the Seattle Mariners. Julio Rodriguez was absolutely fantastic, and he brought a spark to a city that really you hadn't quite seen that out of a homegrown prospect since Ken Griffey Jr. And without him, you look at some of those games, you take them out, I don't think they're even in the playoffs. I mean, granted, obviously we know they got swept in 3 games by the Houston Astros, but who knows? Maybe they have a good future on the horizon. I would definitely give it to J-Rod. And as far as the NL goes, even though he kind of faltered down the stretch in the second half and he got knocked around in the playoffs, I'm going to go with Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves. I thought he was really good for them.
Atlanta has an incredible core. That's going to be one of those cores that's going to be around for the next 5 to 7 years, the way they worked all those contracts out. But
and that's why that's why I can't like assume the Phillies are going to keep competing for a division title, because the Atlanta Braves are just, they build their team the right way with developing talent and then signing them all to like long-term extensions.
I hate to say it because it's such a boring cliche phrase, but the Phillies are old school. That's what they are. They're older. Dombrowski plays older. When he was with the Red Sox, he basically traded away all the young to bring in all the old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then to look at J-Rod, I kind of look at J-Rod the same way the Yankees with Aaron Judge. If the Yankees didn't have Aaron Judge this year, they would have been a dumpster fire. If J-Rod was not on the Mariners would have been a dumpster fire, but that's normal because they've been a dumpster fire for many years.
Now, we can argue about the contract that he received, like a good
Oh
amount
my God.
for like a later episode, but at the same time, I actually see why they did it and why it can make sense, because they are trying to change the culture up there.
You don't see contracts like that in MLB. That's more of like an NFL style contract where
it's ridiculous, but I see why they didn't want to risk losing him.
And the weird part is, I think he's going to earn a lot of that money. Like, he's a really good player. They need to build around him. That can't be the only guy they get. But I think he's a really good player. He deserves it. And hopefully the Mariners build off this year, because now there's high expectations for the Mariners now to compete.
Yeah, no, totally. I definitely see it.
So, all right. So we have Rookie of the Year. Let's talk about Manager of the Year. This is an interesting discussion. I know everyone's going to say Buck. Everyone's going to say Buck Showalter for the Mets.
Raise my hands.
Would you say he's a runaway, though, or no?
I don't think he's a runaway, but here's why I'd put him ahead of the other candidates. Now, by the way, let me just say, though, that I think there are other guys who should have been considered over Dave Roberts. I would probably Rob Thompson, at the very least, should have gotten more consideration. I mean, again, I know it was based off the regular season, but look at the way he turned around the Phillies, like after he got hired in early June. You're telling me he's not a guy that should be a candidate? And then you could maybe say Bob Melvin of the San Diego Padres could have been put up there, but again, this is an award that's like, based on the regular season, and the Padres, we kind of forget, underachieved for most of the year, and you had that whole Tatis thing, which, oh boy, you know why I'm laughing, but I'm not even going to go there. Yeah, no, Dave Roberts should not be winning that award. I don't know how you put him in the top 3, because all he has to do is just plug in the lineups and they'll win 111 games. The problem is, can he manage in the postseason? And look what happened to the Dodgers. And
I agree with you, by the way, that I feel like Dave Roberts has it's kind of past his prime now as manager. Like, when he started, like, it was all great and everyone thought he was creative and all that stuff, but now it's basically, the Dodgers
rivers of managers, essentially.
Right. And the Dodgers basically just pay for everybody now, like the Yankees did. So now it's just, all right, I have Freddie Freeman here, I have Mookie Betts here. Like, who cares? Like, that's not hard to do. With Buck, with the Mets, it was a huge balancing act with all the injuries and all that stuff, getting them to win 100 plus games.
Yeah. I was just going to get to Buck and Snitker. I think you could make the argument for Snitker. I think he did a good job with the Atlanta Braves. However, when you look at the New York Mets, that was a team that was essentially pieced together with like tape and glue, essentially.
I agree.
And not to mention, the Mets had a turnaround. Like, they went from being under 500 to having the second highest regular season win total in franchise history. I believe the only one that won more was the 86 squad. They won 101 games. Now, obviously, we're not taking the postseason into effect, but with that being said, even with the fact that Billy Epler did not do a good job with the deadline, in fact, I still can't believe he would give up 4 players for Darren Ruff, but that's besides the point.
Who was the other one you and I were debating about, the outfielder that we said they should have traded for?
I thought they should have traded for JD Martinez, and
we both agreed on that.
I still stand by that take.
No, so do I. I agree. We both said that. How do you not make that move? It's right smack dab in the middle in their face.
We're literally all but trying to get rid of him. Who knows what they would have had to give up? But at the same time, if you trust your minor league scouts, like, you can replace the guys like them pretty easily.
The Red Sox pulled a DJ Moore,
and like the Mets are trying to win now. They go after Scherzer and DeGrom to go with DeGrom, but yet they get not so big fish at the trade deadline, and the rough move especially was the worst out of all of them.
Pun intended.
That basically, with all that in mind, I think Buck definitely should be the National League Manager of the Year award winner. Now, as far as the American League, you look at those three choices, I don't see a problem with either of them. Scott Servais essentially put the Mariners back into the playoffs for the first time in so long, and he'd been there for a while, and he really seemed to me like he really got better as a manager over time.
I'm happy for him because he fights for his players wherever he's been. He's what they call a player's manager. He will go out there and he will put essentially his life on the line for his players.
Now, again, I still don't know why you would put Robbie Ray in the 9th inning of Game 1 of the ALDS, but that's the story for another day. As far as the other two managers, I mean, look, Terry Francona, got to give him a good amount of credit where credit is due. I mean, look, you can say what you want about the fact the Indians won a very weak division, but the fact of the matter is, that was a team that didn't have very high expectations, but then, yet you're lucky enough to get one of your stars to stay on a hometown discount. You have a really good minor league system. You have so many young players. You not only get them to the playoffs, but you get them to within a game of the ALCS. That was a pretty solid managing job that Francona did, all things considered. And, if you look at how long he's been in Cleveland, I think he very well might be the best manager they've had, or at least since 48 when they last won. I think I would probably even put him ahead of Hargrove because Hargrove had a lot more talent than Terry did.
I would say good.
However, with that being said, I'm going to give my choice for Manager of the Year award is Brandon Hyde because if you had told me the Orioles were going to play meaningful games in September, I probably would have been very surprised.
I would have laughed almost.
But you were able to get a lot of good performances out of your lineup. Even if some players had down years, you still kept on competing even with trade Mancini to the Houston Astros. And it seemed like they did a pretty good job at developing their young talent this year. And for all we know, the Orioles could be a team that, could be big players down the line when it comes to free agency. I think I like the new regime that they have there. They hired one of the Astros guys as their GM too. So
who is the third baseman that they got the year before, the big prospect? Didn't they get a big third base prospect, the Orioles?
Oh,
he was really well, and he came up and he hit really well too.
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but Adley Rutschman's the guy that I'm thinking of. That's really
I knew about him, the catcher, but it was the year before they brought up a really well thought out prospect, and he hit right off the bat. I can't remember his name, but they look really good prospects wise.
Oh, Gunnar Henderson.
That's it. Thank you. That's it. And he looked really good. This guy looks good at catcher. They look really good. I think they're going to be competing, at least in the discussion of competing. The one thing I wanted to say about Francona is, and I know you said it's usually a regular season award, the one thing, if I had to pick on him for the whole year, including the playoffs, was not starting Bieber in that all-important game.
Yeah, it seemed to me, I think Bieber was dealing with injury stuff, so I think that's probably why they didn't want to start him on 3 days rest, but I don't entirely disagree with that.
But we'll see how this all goes. I was going to bring up the MVP, but I want to wait and see how that one really goes because that could go either way. Of course, you're going to see a lot of screaming podcast hosts if Ohtani is named the MVP over Judge. And
slowly raise my hands.
And the LA Times is coming out and saying, well, he's the full-out MVP. He brought more. Give me a break.
No.
What is it that Johnny says all the time? If it was the most important player,
the most outstanding player.
I mean, outstanding player, right? Then yeah, go ahead, give him the most outstanding player. But
then I want to bring up another point that like Check made with me when we were like discussing this like on the side, and I think he recently did an episode of Baseball Banter with Hewitt, and he brought this up too. If you're gonna put Ohtani's like hitting numbers up against Judge's numbers this year, who wins? It's obviously Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna look at his pitching numbers as a whole, is he a Cy Young winner? No. So is he really the MVP that we're making him out to be?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because my co-host Tom Albano said the same thing. That
again, this was John Check's words, and another thing that he and I both talked about with regards to the MVP discussion. Aaron Judge has better defensive numbers in the field than Shohei Ohtani this year too.
Oh, absolutely. Did you see the amount of robbed plays he made, including what was it, the one in the Astros series that he stole?
And not to mention, I didn't even get into the fact that Aaron Judge led almost all hitting categories with the exception of batting average.
He almost had the Triple Crown, for crying out loud. I mean, but that play in Houston, which saved that game, I think I think they lost that game, but
they did.
But that was a game-saving play. That the man who's almost 7 feet is willing to dive and put his body on the line to make plays. So it is what it is, but you're going to see it. I know, right? You and I will say for sure that if Ohtani gets the award, it's going to be the Yankee bias of the writers who vote. I
don't think it's going to happen, but
if it did, I'm saying the Yankee bias is going to come out. We all know it for a fact, but it is what it is, and you can't really do much about it. But all right, that went by really quick. We made it to the end of the episode.
Actually, there was one award we didn't get to. Cy Young Awards winners. For NL, I would say that Sandy Alcantara of the Marlins would win that one. And he
pitched really well.
For the AL, as great as Dylan Cease and Alek Manoah were, you can't not give it to Justin Verlander.
I will bring up one thing, and I know because we're running up against it here. Did you see that his brother had a vote and he voted for his brother?
Oh, why am I not surprised?
Do you agree, though, that he shouldn't be allowed to vote for his brother?
I do agree, even though technically he wasn't wrong in that voting. Still,
he's not wrong. Justin Verlander is the unanimous, in my opinion, Cy Young Award winner. Now, as Yankee fans, we're not happy about that, but
I don't even care. I feel nothing.
No, I'm just saying you don't want it to be because obviously it's your rival, but he definitely won it by far. It's not even a discussion. Anyone who tries to say it's someone else needs to go get their head checked. So I agree with you on that front. And Alcantara looked really amazing all season. He's a really good pitcher in a lot of ways. And they also had
for my NL MVP, even though Goldschmidt and Arenado had great years, I might actually have to give it to Manny Machado because he carried the Padres for a good amount of.
Wow. I didn't expect you to say Machado. Wow.
Well, here's another factor that might lead to Machado winning that award. Keep in mind when you have two players on the same team in like the top three, sometimes they tend to steal votes from each other. So that might not be as sure of a thing as you might think with Arenado and Goldschmidt.
Yeah, because
both of them technically had better numbers. If we're talking about most valuable and we're going to use that argument, then technically I would have to give it to Machado.
Yeah, because I thought Goldschmidt really had a comeback year because he was really down in decline.
He was fantastic.
And I was surprised because I remember over the last couple of years, people were questioning whether he could hit the ball anymore. And then he comes out and puts on a power show all year and driving in runs. So we'll see how both those races go. But now I could say it. Anyway, after a great episode, it's now the end of episode 33. Johnny will be back next week. Let me just go down my line of banners here. Make sure you catch the Monty Moment on Thursday. Johnny has that throughout the full college football season. That's almost in the books. Believe it or not, the bowl season is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Football Friday picks. every Friday. We go through all the picks except for obviously Thursday Night Football, which we did on here. And I think that, and obviously episode 34 will be next week. So, Johnny, this was, oh my God, Hank, this was fun. I did it. I knew it was going to happen at one point.
For sure. I had a blast. Always a pleasure, Nick. And hey, we'd love to have you back on the show, obviously, to talk about the Nets, but I'm sure.
I think I've had enough of the Nets for about a month.
Can't say that, can you?
But as I said, for Hank Indictor, I'm Nick Morgasen. Johnny will be back next week. And I guess we'll say goodbye. So good night, everybody.